All righty, let's get started. Good to have you guys here at Corbin. My name is Gilbert. I've been here 11 years, and wouldn't it be good to be here and not have to talk about this topic? This is not the kind of topic that many of us really want to talk about, but this is one that we must. If you go to that QR code, and it's on various other slides, it's a link to a lot of the other talks I've done that are longer about this subject, with handouts and other stuff just for you, because it's we need to be prepared, and this is something that we are not most often prepared for. So today I want to give you kind of some understanding of what's going on in our culture. What can we do with it? A lot of the books I'm going to pull from and talk about have actually all been published in the last year or two. A number of them in the last few weeks. Like it's really, there's a lot of good conversation out there, which is good. What's sad to me is I'm hearing more conversation in our culture right now from secular resources than I am from Christian ones. That's frustrating. So we in the church need to be able to speak into this. Many of you are readers, or maybe some of you are readers, or maybe a few of you are readers. I don't know. If you're not, that's okay. There's a lot of these resources I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter if you're not able to read through them. I'm going to give you some kind of summary of it, and then some places to go where you can at least gather some of that information. Because I want you to be prepared. We need to be prepared. This is a tough topic. A lot of what I teach in and talk in is sex ed. We need to have a biblical sexual ethic. The books I've written have been about sexuality and gender, and that's my focus. I believe that our parents are the key to this. So preparing families is also critical. How do we partner with families? And I'll show you where that's going off the rails here in a little bit as well. But here's the statement that scares me and makes me at least think. Either I do or someone else does. Someone is going to teach our kids and our young people their ethic, or we are. The church, families, hopefully we're partnering with churches. And so if you think of the passage in Romans, I want to kind of go there for a second and look at the passage in Romans 1:24. Therefore God gave them over in their sinful desires of their hearts. That just scares me actually right there. To sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie. We know this. This is what we're seeing in our culture. He gave them over to their shameful lusts. Although they know God's righteous decrees, and that's where at least a lot of the people I minister to, these kids, these young adults grew up in the church. They know the truth. Those who do such things deserve death. They not only continue to do these things, but they also approve of those who practice them. What I'm also seeing are families that the only response they know how to do is to accept everything that their kid brings to them, because that's the loving thing to do. And I want to be here to say no, 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 no. And so how do we position that? So last year a book came out that was just a game changer, and the author of this book, by writing this book, she knew this was probably the end of her career. And she goes, but I'm in my 70s, so bring it on. I love that. And it's not been the end of her career, but Miriam Grossman, Lost in Translation. She was featured in the What is a Woman documentary. She was one of the only people that actually spoke well on stuff. So I want to show you just a few snippets of what did she find. This was a very researched book. This was not opinion. This is what is being seen in the boots on the ground, working with kids, working with families. And so that's why I'm going to go to this resource and talk about it. And again, if you don't, someone else will, is the issue here. What's happening in the schools? In the schools, according to her research, teachers make claims that if a parents are not 100% affirming, they are the child's parent now. We need to be more involved in our schools than we ever have in history. If your kid's in that school, I actually would say you need to be in that school almost as much as your kid is. Like it's that big of a deal as to what's being taught, how it's being taught, and the boundaries being put to actually push parents out and push against this. So that's a problem in terms of our schools. There's a lot going on in our schools where we can be a presence and be a voice of hope Because there's also kids that if you detransition, you're dead to me in the culture. You can only go one way. You can only go, I'm trans, but you cannot go back. The irony of the fluidity that we're supposed to have, which shows this is actually a cult, and this is actually a sickness, if you will. It really scares me, actually, for our kids, but also for families. I run a support group for families as well. And every family that joins us, we've been going over a year, every family that joins us, they'll start telling their story, and some of us will almost start laughing because we'll go, it's the exact same word-for-word story that our kid told us. Why? Because they're getting it all online, and they're getting the same script. How to basically destroy the relationship with my parents, how to cut you off, how to always be right, everyone else be wrong. I'm the center of the universe. It's terrifying. And here's another scary one. If something is wrong with my kid, or I feel like I need to talk to someone, who do we tend to go to? We go to a counselor. The reality today is, can your local counselor be trusted if you come from a biblical worldview? I honestly wouldn't trust most Christian counselors right now.
Absolutely.
And I'm speaking as one.
Yep.
You need to be able to ask that Christian counselor specific questions to know, what are you going to be doing with my child? And what I would say is, don't ever let them be alone with them. And so what I do is I work with the whole family. I don't want to be alone with your kid. I want to be with you. I'm partnering with you to work with you because you're going to be there at 2 a.m. I'm not. You're going to be there in a crisis. I'm not. And so talk to those counselors, or actually be careful, and we'll talk some more about counselors here in a minute. Another term is gender identity. This is a whole new made-up term. Oh my gosh, we just like to invent stuff. Like, I remember a few years ago when the word selfie was the word of the year. I'm like, really? Are we that narcissistic? Basically, yes, we are. But this is actually from the 50s. I don't recommend doing this, but you can if you want to. Go study up on John Money and Alfred Kinsey and be very, 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 very depressed. These are very depraved, very broken individuals who had their own hurts and their own demons, and they actually harmed so many people. If you worked with Alfred Kinsey, you and your wife or your husband had to all participate in the sexual stuff with the whole team. That's what it was like working with him. And your kids, by the way, too. How do you think they got data on kids? They literally did sexual things to kids to see what the response was. This is not okay. Yet we're basing all this stuff today on 1950s gender identity from John Money, where he experimented on 2 boys, where they burned the boy's penis off accidentally in a circumcision. So they go, hey, let's trace him as a girl. And then they published a bunch of papers, and we're all good. And that's the foundation. Well, those kids both killed themselves. One killed himself, suicide. The other one, drug addiction. Killed himself through drugs. It's not a success story. That's the foundation of gender identity, and it's unraveling, which is good. But another piece of this puzzle is this one, professional organizations. It's the Castro consensus. Learn from Fidel Castro. What? My way or the highway. Like, did Putin actually win the election a few weeks ago? No. It's a system. Yay, he won. No. That's not the way it works. It's control, scare. That's what's happening so that's why Miriam Grossman is terrified, because all of her organizations she's a member of basically endorse the WPATH regulations for transgender care. What is that? WPATH, the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, which, by the way, 2 weeks ago got exposed. And it is, if you go research that a little bit, it's incredible how they know they're doing harm to kids. They don't care. They know that it's all an experiment. They don't care. And so things are starting to unravel. The irony is it's already unraveled in other countries. And America is just hanging on for dear life. So we went from one transgender clinic in America just a few years ago to like 20. And they're starting to close. Things are starting to happen. We need to be praying for that to happen to protect our kids.
What was the name of that organization?
WPATH.
WPATH?
WPATH, yes. On the legal side too, a child is not a miniature adult. Now, we're in Oregon here, and my 13-year-old daughter has more rights than I kind of care to let her have. Like, what do we do with that? Well, we're pushing it down to a younger and younger age. So if my daughter, who's 13, decides, or actually magically ends up pregnant, which, is that how it happens? But anyway, she can go get an abortion. It's like, she's going to go kill a baby. Someone else actually needs to die. As in, who got her pregnant? Yeah. I'm a dad, so I'm going to go. But that's not the world we live in. She has this permission of privacy as if she was an adult, and that's not okay. She's not out of place to be able to make those decisions. And then here's the scariest one. Parents I talked to over the last few years, they allow this one. They actually think this is the most, the safest route as a parent to manage my child who is not doing well. And it's called social transitioning. So the harmless allowance of social transitioning is the gateway drug on the assembly line. So we need to say no. Why? When a kid socially transitions at school, it's a 90-something% chance that they're going to start hormones and blockers and go that. They may not go all the way to surgeries, but they're going to start that process. And then here's the coolest and scariest, because we're not living this out. If you do nothing, it's a 90 to 95% chance that they'll actually choose to be the sex they were assigned at birth. That's another new phrase that is hilarious. If we do nothing, this is an experiment. So we need to be empowered as parents and as leaders to kind of go, whoa, push back. Need to push back. What's happening is this new word that I learned, and it's called iatrogenic persistence. This word iatrogenic, what is that? Induced unintentionally by a physician or surgeon or by medical treatment or diagnostic procedures. What is it? It's lifelong patient. Perfectly healthy person, now I became a lifelong patient. Money. Money, 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 money. This is what is happening. And we've almost been too afraid because what if we might offend? Or what if we might be wrong? Or what if it's true that they are this or they are that? And what we've actually found is, well, here's a scary one. In in Sweden, because they have managed socialized medicine, they have good research. They looked at all of the kids that were in the pipeline for transgender care that didn't get it. And remember, what do they say? That if you don't get it, what's going to happen? They're going to kill themselves. 0 suicides. Yay! But so often, do you want a dead daughter or a live son? The cards are played that scare parents, and the parent feels like their back's against the wall. I don't know what to do. The doctors are doing it, the counselors are doing it, the schools are doing it, and sometimes if we're not careful, we're doing it too. And we need to not be that person. We need to be a place of hope and actually of rationality. Kids, young adults right now who are detransitioning are saying one of two things. They're saying, Mom and Dad, they look back at Mom and Dad, they go, Mom and Dad, I cannot believe you play along with my delusion. You're dead to me. And they walk away. Or they go, Mom and Dad, thank you for telling me the truth, even though I didn't like it, even though I hated you. Thank you for always sticking to the truth. I love you. And they're reuniting with their families, and they're bonding back with their families. We need to tell the truth.
Did you say something earlier? You can't go back, and then you just use the term detransitioning?
Yes. So if you go to YouTube and type in detransitioning, there are so many young adults that are detransitioning. And part of their story every time is, and my whole community left me. So there's permission to go here. Yay, we'll celebrate you. But if you go there, you're all alone.
So you can detransition?
You can, yes. The culture is not letting you. Yes, absolutely. But what you're doing when you detransition is you're also realizing, wow, my breasts are gone. My ability to have sexual arousal is gone if there's surgeries. My voice is now deeper and it will never go back. And there's all these consequences. But praise God for the new body that we get one day.
Yeah.
And I have to tell parents that every day. If they cut themselves up to pieces, it's okay. May they, even if it's on their deathbed, profess Christ. And they will be with us in heaven. And this will be all over. We have to hang on to that. Because it may not happen in a year or two. It may not happen in 10 years. They may walk along a path in this cult for a long time, which is scary. It's also getting worse. CPS, there are lawsuits across the country on this. Rehoming your child is possible. If you are not an affirming parent, we will find a family that actually will love your child. And she tells stories in her book over and over and over of kids who, because parents weren't affirming, I will put this one girl over here and then she was human trafficked. And then put her over here and then she actually was assaulted by somebody. And the stories of what's happening to some of our young people is absolutely terrifying.
Corey, what you just said about our new bodies in heaven was worth the admission today. That was profound, and thank you. That was great.
Yes. But here's what I'm worried about for you and for parents. What I'm seeing in my counseling practice is marriages that are about to divorce. Because one of them handles it one way and one of them handles it different. So mom and dad, one will use the pronouns and one's like, no, my child's dead to me. And because they grieve different and they handle this different, they're about to divorce. And I protect your marriage. Satan is after, and so a lot of the work I do is actually marriage counseling. I work with couples because your marriage needs to be protected in this season of grief and of hurt. And here's a really, really good book that came out last year also. Shanti Felden and one of my mentors and teachers, Michael Seitzma. Very well researched, an amazing resource of a good book that looks at the sexual part in marriage, but actually talks about how to stay connected as a couple and protect your marriage. And to me, I believe marriage is central here. If you're married, your marriage actually becomes almost that lid as to how healthy your life ends up being. Like, it's so central. Yay! Love that picture. In a few weeks, it'll be 21 years with this amazing bride. So, yay! Love that. Another one that's happening is euphemisms. Your language matters. There's no 0% regret rate. It's called we don't keep data because we don't want to know what's actually happening. And that's literally what the clinics are saying they're doing. Oh, we don't keep data on that. Like, duh. That's not how it works. And actually, that's not good research. That's not good medicine. That's not good anything. Top surgery. No, it's called a double mastectomy of perfectly healthy breasts. And then she goes off on this. I love Miriam Grossman because she's like, I've had a mastectomy. I had cancer. My mom has had 2 mastectomies. She's had cancer. And these are girls who have perfectly healthy breasts. Guys who are chopping off their penises or turning it inside out. That's the faux vagina. What is a faux vagina? Do you know the other word for that? It's called an open wound. When you turn the penis inside to make some weird pocket, your body's fighting and fighting and fighting to close it. So you have to use a dilator every day to keep that wound open for the rest of your life. And there's about 70 to 80% of people who have these surgeries now eliminated all sexual pleasure possible because the nerve endings are destroyed. And so they start realizing, well, this isn't very fun, and this is really hard, and this is really gross. And so what do we do with that? Well, the magic number is about 7. So the research from other countries is about 7 years post-surgery is where suicide rates skyrocket. We're not at 7 years yet. That's how new things are here in the United States. And it's even gotten weirder. Here's the new one. Trans is old, Nulo is new, the eunuch. Men who don't want to be anything. So let's just get rid of everything and be nothing. And the surgeons have to go, okay, whatever makes you happy, at least for the 5 minutes today. I was talking to a nurse who was actually helping 2 men prepare for surgery to have this faux vagina created. And she said these guys were an absolute basket case because of all the estrogen they've been on. They're crying and crying. And she's like, I wanted to tell them, it's only the beginning, honey. But she had to be professional and just act like this is normal. And this is not okay. And it's actually doing more damage. And the one I mentioned a minute ago is the suicide data that's often quoted as a myth. And this is a beautiful praise. I think too many families are scared into hiding almost because of this. But what if they commit suicide? They actually could. Statistically, it's actually very unlikely. if we actually dealt with the other things going on, their chances plummet. Because almost always there's a lot of other stuff going on, from anxiety to depression to a history of abuse, trauma, that we're ignoring all those things. Or even crazier, autism. The percentage of autistic children that actually claim now this, because it makes sense to them, is just through the roof. And it actually makes sense, because I'm really nothing. I don't have the drive like others of my sex. So therefore this must be the fix, and it's never the fix. And they're finding that out in droves, and that's not okay. We need to stand firm. What's this called? This is the term, these two terms: rapid onset gender dysphoria, and this is a social contagion. Prior to the last 5 years, transgender was almost a fully male thing. It was men that wanted their own boobs. It was men that felt like they were a woman. We have a famous Californian one. What's her name? His name? Jenner, yeah. Caitlyn Jenner? No, Caitlyn Jenner. Which one? Bruce Jenner. There you go. Bruce Jenner. Yeah. That was the norm. It was almost all men, and all of a sudden a few years ago it's girls in droves. Because they're not what the world says they are. They don't feel the way that others think they should feel as a girl. Or, hey, it's cool, and I'm now on the fringe, or I'm now in a protected class. What I've even seen is, for some schools, it's so old school to be gay or lesbian. This is the new cool thing. It becomes a social contagion. Ironically, go back in history, so was cutting, self-harm. Go back a little further, so was eating disorders. Those are all still here, but there were seasons where we had these other social contagions, and ironically, mostly girls. And so we've got to address this and help talk them through a season. And I'll show you something else that'll give you a time frame of that here in a minute. But to kind of wrap up her research, if you go to her website, miriamgrossomnd.com, there's actually a lot of good resources, but there's actually a form, a letter, so parents notice to schools, that she's created, that you can fill in your information and use. Very practical. Say, hey, you need to partner with your school, but you need to tell them where you're at. You don't socially transition my kid without my permission. You don't let them be someone that they're not at school. You need to stake your claim here. Really, really, really important. Right around the time that this book came out, a little after, another one came out. And this is the name of it: When Kids Say They're Trans. Written by 3 non-Christian therapists, one in Ireland, 2 in the United States. Do I agree with everything? No. But man, do they make some important claims based on their years and years and years of working with kids and working with families. And so I want you to kind of see the connection to this other research. Here's the first one. Parents who have successfully helped their children navigate gender distress without resorting to surgery and hormones have done so how? By authoritatively taking the reins. And what are parents doing? They gave that up a long time ago. How do parents give that up? Smartphone. When I was growing up, when a lot of us were growing up, the mark of being an adult was when you got your driver's license. The mark of an adult now is when I get my cell phone, says the 10-year-old, or 8-year-old, or 6-year-old. And now this is my private. You don't have any right to this. That's not okay. This is not helping, and we'll get into some of that here in a minute, but they authoritatively have taken the reins. We have to insulate them against the messages that their sex will or should be determined by their interests. And then this is really interesting. It takes about 8 years for kids to understand gender constancy. I've never seen this written anywhere else. This was an interesting one to me. I haven't seen this in the developmental psych stuff. 8 years for someone to kind of, okay, am I still there? I think I am. Okay, this is who I am. If that's really true, any kid we talk to, okay, I'll talk to you in 8 years. Then we can talk. If it's still persisting, maybe we'll Or maybe during those 8 years, we can address your suicidality, we could address your bullying at school, we could address your depression, we could address, the list is actually long for many of these kids, which is scary. I don't think there's anything that we have to do when our kids present as gender nonconforming. And the thing is, as parents are told, there's a lot of things they have to do.
Yeah.
You have to follow in line. You have to do these things. There needs to be a watchful waiting. Social transition, and this backs up what Miriam Grossman said, appears to set kids on a path to medical intervention, and medical intervention can have significant health consequences. We need to actually say no to this, and that means in our churches, this gets messy. Do we have separate bathrooms? Do we allow this? Do we allow that? This gets really, really messy. I was at a church just not too long ago speaking about this, and I had people yelling at me. Parents yelling at me, calling me names, because I am a hateful person, because the church should be a place that's just inclusive. And it's like, it is. And it also always points to Jesus. Anyone can come in those doors, but we're going to always be pointing to Jesus. Always be pointing to Jesus. Always be pointing towards redemption, towards wholeness, not whatever makes you, and this is a scary one because parents say it a lot, I just want my kids to be happy. No! A few weeks ago, my oldest is heading to college in the fall, and everything got kind of like in the air. We weren't sure where he's going to go because of Corbin's tuition exchange stuff, and my wife, who is a non-emotional human being, I'm the emotional basket case, was crying all the time, and I'm like, who is this person? But I just want him to be happy. And I'm like, it's not about him being happy. Where does God want him? Where's God going to mess with him the most to grow him up into the man that God wants to use? And the way it worked out was incredible. And he's actually right now on a flight to Colorado Christian to meet his roommates. So it's kind of cool to see. But it's like I saw a new level of my wife that I've never seen before. Because she's someone that when she had her kids, all three of hers, she's like, now what? Like, no emotional connection. And I'm over there like, I'm a dad, like in tears. And because we're kind of wired different, which probably makes sense why this stuff for me is very important. I was the weird kid. I was the different kid. I was the one that didn't fit in. I was the one that, people had questions about. And to look back and realize if I grew up today, I don't know where I would be or what they would have done to me. Yeah. It scares me, actually. You, parent, and I would say the church too, may be more effective at helping your child through this experience yourself rather than going to a therapist. This is stated by 3 therapists who are not Christians. I just think that's incredible. Yeah. They're staking a claim that I'm not hearing a lot of Christian therapists and Christian authors even say, let alone pastors, and especially not parents. So what should we do, parents? Parents, take the time to make concerted efforts to place boundaries upon your child's online engagement. That's a key area we're seeing kids lost. They're in the home, and they're being lost in the home through that little cable connected to your house. Really, really scary. It's our job to help our child orient and adapt to reality, like the reality that you're not the center of the universe. That work is a gift from God, and that you should start it at 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, not at 18 if you have to. And we're going to try to delay it. Our theology of work is actually another really important one, and the modeling that we give there.
So many kids today are in split homes.
Yep.
And you have 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds that are getting one story from a dad and another story from a mom. How does that help? All I can do is take care of my side of that. And they have a lot of choices to make. That free will is annoying. And it's going to be on them, which is really scary. And so what I tell parents when I've got that one side, and it's like, you be faithful, and you have to entrust them to God because you can't control what's being said on the other side. And you have to trust that they will actually choose well. And we don't like not being in control. We're control freaks. So this gets messy. Same for school. Yeah. I'm dealing with one practical case right now.
Mm-hmm.
Father's
Bible-believing Christian. Mother has gone into a spiritualist realm with crystals, etc., etc. It's like, oh.
Yep. Yeah. One thing I tell parents all the time that when I have half that is, you be faithful and do not disparage your spouse, your ex-spouse. Let them come to believe and to see and to know the truth about who you each are. Don't you be the one bad-mouthing, because they'll actually eventually really turn on you, because they kind of get sick of it because they get defensive of their other parent. So be careful, but we need to present the truth, and that's all we can do, which is actually scary. California a few years ago, about 6 years ago, declared that we need to teach all 15 genders in kindergarten. 15. And I'm like, Facebook's in California, and there's 90-something on Facebook, so they need to talk, because they're not getting on the same story here. But then I heard this from parents. I heard parents say, well, I can't send them to school. Well, you have to. You're in California. You have to have 5 incomes to live. So what do we do? And so I said, you need to be the first one to tell them about gender and sexuality in a biblical review. Oh, but they're too young. And I'm like, so they're too young for you to go there, but they're not too young for the teacher at kindergarten? That's right. Listen to yourself. And that's the next session. We need to go there earlier and earlier and earlier than ever. Teaching our kids, preparing them. When they walk into school and the teacher says some weird thing like that, I would be proud for my kid to get sent to the principal's office for saying no. There's only 2. I want them to, and here's the weird thing, is I think kids tend to believe what they hear first. Which is why kids hear stuff at school and they come home and they go, Mom, Dad, you're so antiquated. That's all old school stuff. Because they heard this other thing first. What if we were first? What if we were first? Rapid onset gender dysphoria. This is the definition of it. A feeling of dissociation a young person experiences from their body and their biological sex, typically following extended periods of time online. This is where we're seeing it. We're in a different world. Kids aren't playing outside like they used to. Often socially influenced and appears to be maladaptive. We know it's maladaptive. The data has come out in books that have come out this year that show this is maladaptive, this isn't working, we are failing here. And then I love this one. Educate your autistic teen about all the gifts and challenges that come with being neurodivergent. You're different, and that's so beautiful. We need to celebrate the difference, yet a lot of parents, again, feel like their hands are tied because of the cards that were played. Now this year, 2024, in the last month, another book came out. To me, these next 2 books are game changers. You don't need to go read it. There's a lot of good video clips, by the way, on YouTube where they summarize it in a talk in an hour. Watch a few of those, you'll get the gist. But this is the next one, Bad Therapy. To me, this is a game changer book, honestly, personally. It's made me look at everything I do as a counselor and lay it out on the table and go, am I doing that? Am I doing that? Am I doing that? Am I hurting people here? Am I failing here? It's made me really think through what I do. And I've been doing it in front of my classes here at Corbin all this last 5 or 6 weeks since it came out. Because I obviously don't want to be doing harm. And so I'm thinking through, because I also have a private practice. Abigail Schreier wrote the book Irreversible Damage that came out a number of years ago. She's a reporter, journalist. She's not really got a beef in this in a sense, but she's starting to get angry with what she's seeing in our culture. So it's a lot of interviews. This is her. When therapy does more damage than good. What's the gist of this? Breast cancer awareness and understanding of it and tools have actually decreased death of breast cancer. We are more therapized and medicated than ever, so we should have the lowest level of anxiety and depression and other mental health issues. That's not happening. It's the exact opposite. Why? Money, 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 money. And people the iatrogenic. I have a client for life. I don't see clients for very long. Because if we're working for longer than even 6 months, I'm like, then obviously you need to find someone else. I think very few people need longer term therapy. Some do, but it's more like moving into check-ins, not this therapy. We need people in our life. Most people that go to therapy that I see don't have a community. They don't have people in their life that they can go to. And so that's where we need to actually spend some time. So she actually really dives into healers that can harm. Again, the iatrogenesis and how therapy doesn't work. And just to kind of, this is just the chapter headings of her book, but social emotional meddling. We are asking kids all the time, what are you feeling? Are you happy? What are you feeling? Are you happy? Are you happy? And the kid's like, I'm not. I'm not again now. And it's noon, it's lunch, I'm still not happy. There must be something wrong with me. Let me ask you, are you happy all the time? No, it's not the goal. The goal is to be able to ride the roller coaster of waking up and going, oh, my back. And all the things of, wow, today's going to be a rough day, or today's going to be I have a hard task ahead, or wow, I've got a test today. It's not about happy. And we're so meddling in kids' lives at a young age with all these social emotional learning stuff that actually we're doing more damage than good, because they're so focused on the inside. What is Satan's number one tactic to get us useless for the gospel? Keep me focused on myself. I tell marriage counseling couples all the time, right now you're so self-absorbed with fixing your marriage and getting nowhere, by the way. You're worthless for the neighbor that's hurting. And I want you to get off yourself and realize that if you focus on the neighbor, you're actually going to do blessings to your marriage. You focus on that best friend, but when Satan can get you focused on yourself, which is what our counseling culture is doing, he wins and he's doing a happy dance, and we need to stop that. Always mental health surveys is what we're doing, and full of empathy and mean as hell. Yep, that's pretty much. But this is the answer, the thing that she dives into. We're not doing gentle parenting. We're actually doing therapeutic parenting. Now, dear, I'm going to tell you something, but it might hurt a little. Versus, hey, parenting 101, boundary. You don't do that. Like, the way we're parenting is actually getting so gentle. We're actually creating what? Well, Portlanders. Just kidding. Sorry. Those people that throw chairs through windows and think they're entitled to the stuff on the other side and they didn't work for it. It's like those people were raised in a home. Like someone raised them. We're creating monsters. And some of them are ours. Our kids, our grandkids, our church, that what's coming out of it is someone who can't function in society. And we need to actually change that. Spare the rod, drug the child. And then what she kind of goes to is maybe there's nothing wrong with our kids. This will be our final session. We need to get kids out of therapy. We need to get kids out of therapy. Actually, what we're doing, and I've seen this from parents are like, I don't know what to do, so I need to take them to an expert. And it's like, let me partner with you, mom and dad, because I'm not an expert on your child, you actually are. And I want to empower you to love that child, not me come in there as the expert and be able to actually circumvent you, which is what's happening. This privacy stuff, that confidentiality that kid and their therapist have, no. Mom and dad, I'm partnering with you. That's kind of what she's selling and saying, which is important. And then she says, what if taking the risk is the only way to feel ready? We need to go online and look at my wife's Facebook page of the video. If you were in the session earlier with Lauren Calkins, he showed it, of my son on a rock, and then the wave hits him and knocks him off. That was my son. Horrifying. It's very different when they just tell you the story, but when they come home with a video, it's kind of destroys the mom and dad's heart. They're a little like, you could have died. They need to take the risks. They do, actually. That's how we strengthen. And then she says, what if the solution to adolescent mental health problems is to outgrow adolescence? Which actually means, because we created adolescence, that means at 12 or 13, what if we actually had higher expectations? This is actually where being involved in a sport, being involved in learning an instrument or mastering something, takes them off playing video games and takes them off from the other stuff. But when they don't have anything to do, they go online, they live online, and they get in trouble. So finding their space. My oldest just became an Eagle Scout. My next one is almost an Eagle Scout, and it's been amazing to do that. I never did this stuff. My dad did. He skipped me. I grew up in Chile, so we were overseas, and so it's been neat to watch them do stuff and to learn stuff that I didn't get to do. But it also gave them community. These are our Boy Scout troop is all dads and all Christian families, and we do life together. And it's been the most incredible relationships. I couldn't have asked for better. And the irony is that's where, if I needed something at 2 a.m., I know that any of those dads I could call. I kind of laugh to think that's not where I thought I would be getting my friends. But it is, and it's been really cool. And then I go, wow, my oldest is 2 years away from being done. Maybe I won't quit because I love these dads. And that's a weird thing to say because a few years ago I was like, so ready to have my Monday nights back. Why we commit to things. And here's the next one. The next book that came out, this one was just 2 or 3 weeks ago, was this one. You might have heard of it, The Anxious Generation. His previous book was called The Coddling of the American Mind. Really good book, really important book. He talks about in The Coddling of the American Mind that our kids are anti-fragile. Anti-fragile. They need to be stressed to be strengthened. But yet we treat them like a teacup. They need actually to be stressed. When they built the dome, I think it was in Arizona, to have the ecosystem in there and have life, the trees after a while fell over. And they realized the reason why they fell over was the lack of wind to strengthen them. Such a cool picture of that. Our kids need, this is crazy, they need the bully. Sad to say that, but they need someone that's actually going to push back. My middle son, who has no filter on his mouth, we've told him, stop speaking that way, stop doing that. He doesn't listen to us because we're his parents. And I'm like, your friends are going to have to cut you down to size on some of these things. And it has. It's been really cool to listen to them. The friends kind of push back, and then he's so sensitive, he just starts crying. He doesn't know what to do, but he's learning. He just had 5 job interviews and got no. He's like, why? It's like, Blaze, you tell them everything about your whole life. It's a job interview. You just need to get the job. I need to make sure I take off this time and I have this and I have this. He wants to make sure it's all laid out there and learning the world. And then he just got hired at our church as a janitor, so that's good. But Jonathan Haidt, back in 2019 with the Calling of the American Mind, didn't see phones and all this stuff as the issue. But it's more like it might be, because he's very, very much a researcher. We knew it was back then. But here he's basically coming out and saying, we're destroying our kids with phones and social media. We are destroying our kids and our families. And here's the data. Up to 2012 is actually what he said. Part of what he's proving too is this was not the pandemic. This is prior to where the spike happened. Anxiety and depression skyrocketed. And then he goes, you know what, let's account for some other pieces of this. What about people that go report self-harm to a hospital? Skyrocket. Increasing a little bit for boys, skyrocketing for girls. What about suicides? Skyrocketing. What's 2012, by the way? What happened in 2012? Smartphone came in 2007. Which, by the way, the smartphone in 2007 was... Yes, Facebook bought Instagram. Instagram went from a few users to Facebook bought it and it blew up. We are losing our girls because of Instagram. Comparison. How are we losing our boys? Because their story is different. And he really does a good job of emphasizing that there are two, boys and girls. And I hope we all agree with that. Pornography is one of the number ones, yes. Pornography, excessive video game play, and absent fathers. That's some research by Zimbardo also, who's confirmed that as well. So his research here's his claim. I don't think this is it, like the only thing, but this is his final, he starts the book off and ends the book with these 4 things. No smartphones before high school. No social media before 16, but preferred 18. phone-free schools, and then more outdoor play, more free play. That's his claim as to what would help fix that. He's actually pushing for, again, this book came out just a few weeks ago, he's pushing for, can we change our America by 2025? Or we're losing our kids. The schools that have actually already implemented the phone-free schools, they would have 3 or 4 weeks of just utter chaos. And all of a sudden, kids are focused, kids are actually friends, they're actually talking. But who's the biggest group of people against phone-free schools? Parents. But I need to be able to call them anytime.
Is it really parents, or is it the kids who are controlling the parents?
It's the parents, because we're control freaks. Actually, most of the kids, when they're interviewed, they actually are now starting to say, I know this isn't good for me. There's something happening where they're kind of going, I wish someone would take this away, but I can't ask for that. And then the peer pressure of, but if I don't have social media and everyone else does, I miss out on everything. Well, that's been a really struggle for our kids because they haven't had social media. And I don't know what's going on. And all my friends are on Discord, and I won't let them be on Discord. What do? Well, you miss out on that. I think we need some changes in our church and our youth groups and kind of what we use and the tools we use, because we're actually doing harm. I used to require my freshmen in college to have Facebook. And we would do a Facebook group, and I had a number of guys come and they didn't have it, so they would get it. And within a few months, they're in my office going, this has opened a door that I don't know what to do with. I'm now looking at stuff I shouldn't, and help. And so I quit. I do not do that anymore. I'm like, if you don't have it, thank you, I'm glad. This is doing harm. But what is this actually? And I love this. At the conference I was at last week, they were saying, yeah, these things are true, but... And what they were saying was, we lack relationship. We're created for relationship. I know our youth group, when they go on any retreat or any outing, they have a big lock box where they lock all the phones in. And they actually laughed about how many thousands of dollars are in this box, which is kind of scary. And we have some girls that are like, nope, not going on the retreat. Because that phone, pry it out of my cold, dead hand. That's their relationship with their phone. Yeah, it does not leave my hand. It's just really scary. I mentioned a minute ago me. This is where I came from, Temuco, Chile. Let me show you a picture of me in 1992. This was me. Let's say I was confused. Everything I owned was purple, pink, and I was a music major, but it didn't make it any better. But I was on a mission trip to Dominican Republic, and a missionary who had barely known me looked at me and goes, I think I figured you out. You grew up in South America as this white redhead and stood out like a sore thumb, and then you came to the U.S. and you're nobody, and you're doing everything you can to stand out. And I was like, crap. You're so right. Isn't that what our kids are doing? Whether it's stand out or whether it's just fit in. I don't know who I am. I'm trying to figure myself out. Actually, all of us went through this, but it was in different areas, whether it's athleticism or whether it's with guys or girls or dating or, even job. When kids come to Corbin to visit, it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, I don't care what you want to be when you grow up. Actually, let me ask you a better question. Where do you feel God's calling you? Well, my mom says I'm really good at this. I'm like, good, because God sometimes calls you that way. You might be really good at that, but God says, go here. Listen to him, not your mom. That's hard to say. Careful who you listen to. Follow Christ, follow him, follow that. And then how do I know the voice of God? That's another really hard and important question. Well, hey, let me partner with you to figure that out. Because I went from this to that. There's me now. Yeah! But then those pipes were way too dinky, so I did better ones. And what's weird for me is writing this, which I have another one now, a different one, but writing this, every time I'm on it, I'm not in a wheelchair. I have health issues. There's a lot of reasons why I ride a motorcycle. And one of them is, when I met my wife, I was walking with a cane and was told I'd never work. And she was told, if you marry him, you'll take care of him the rest of your life. And she's been a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling our kids for the last 16 years. And every time I get on that bike, especially when it's pouring down rain, it's like I have a smile. because I'm not in a wheelchair. I'm employed, and I'm doing what I feel God's called me to do. We want every one of our kids, that's actually the answer. I want my kids to know their purpose. They were put here for a reason. Because we have kids actually saying, I didn't consent to being born. I retract my consent. You didn't give consent. I didn't ask you. Actually, I didn't know if I wanted you. Anyway. Okay, so you're here for a purpose. I have a sister who had a son out of wedlock. He was here for a purpose. God didn't go, oops, the kid slipped through. He's here for a purpose. He just got married to an incredible young woman. They're both on fire for Christ. He shouldn't be here. Oh no, he should be here. God is incredible. How we see story and see lives matter. And if you go to, we'll find the website here. If you go to, well, my YouTube page, but this is the drcorygilbert.com. I have videos where I walk through looking at the biblical pieces of how we're made, of male, female, and marriage, and parenting, and what is sin, and all these important conversations that actually we can do. I have some there that I have many friends of mine who've showed the video to their youth group and then had small groups and had conversations. My goal in my heart is to empower you, and I hope you hear this. If you want to talk, please reach out to me. On my website, you can book a free Zoom call. We can talk. If you're coming here to Salem, come. Let's sit down and talk. My goal is to empower you with those issues that we're dealing with, real families, real people, to help you better serve, because you're on the front lines, and I'm a resource. That's what I am. I've got my own people I'm serving, but I want to serve you. I want to help equip you and empower you. So these are the resources I mentioned, by the way, in this. And again, if you go to the website, the video, a longer video of this is there, and all those resources that I hope are going to be encouragement to you. So thank you so much. Can I pray for us? Dear God, thank you so much for calling us in to serve others. This stuff's messy. And I just thank you so much for each person here, the lives that they touch, and just realizing that even one conversation is affecting generations. God, help us steward that well. Help us always learn, always be open to learning and to growing, and always being true to your word. Thank you, Lord, for giving us your word, but also for the body of Christ, other people in our lives to do life with. Thank you for everyone here and their friendships and their relationships that actually also help strengthen them, their marriages, and may those be strong, Lord. Thank you again for the calling you've placed on our lives, and may we, I would say do you proud, but I also don't even understand why you use us. So I'm so thankful that you use us, Lord. It's incredible. Bless each one here in Jesus' name. Amen.